Good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone today to today's media briefing on the Accountability, Integrity and Transparency Audit, which was released at last night's council meeting. Joining us this morning, we have Mayor Blake and we have Councillor Sheldon Germain, who's also Chair of the Audit and Budget Committee. I'd also like to welcome our representatives from KPMG. We have John Stelter. John will be able to speak to anything within the report. John Stelter is a partner in KPMG's public sector audit practice in Edmonton. He has 25 years of experience in client service engagements at KPMG and has provided a broad range of professional services to public sector clients, including municipalities, hospitals, universities, and not-for-profits. We also have Paul Grosch with KPMG, Senior Manager of Advisory Services. Paul was on site with us throughout the audit process. We're going to begin this morning with a statement from Councillor Sheldon Germain, Chair of the Audit and Budget Committee, followed by a statement by Mayor Melissa Blake, and after this, we'll open the floor up for questions for 20 minutes. For media with questions, if you could please raise your hand and we will bring a microphone to you. Please state your name and your media affiliation before asking your question. Please clearly state your question so that everyone in the room and streaming live can hear you. If you're joining us via teleconference, I will repeat the question you've asked to ensure that everyone can clearly hear the question, whether in the room or streaming live. We will alternate between media joining via teleconference and media joining us in the room. Councillor Germain.
Thank you, Megan. Welcome, members of the press, those of you at home watching the live stream, and those of you that have joined in on the teleconference. So, ladies and gentlemen, the Council in December of last year, through our budget hearing, had a motion that we go into an accountability, transparency, and integrity audit. We proceeded with that. Council was fully engaged in what was going to be reviewed, how we were going to review it, and what steps. The bottom line, this council had been targeting improvements, making sure that we understand what is right about the organization and what we need to improve on. I'd like to also make it clear that the full audit, the streaming, all information about this report is publicly shared on woodbuffalo.ab.ca audit. So if any members of the public want to see that, they're of course welcome to go see that, and we encourage you to. During the election, quite frankly, members of council heard the concerns and wanted to clear the air of anything that was going on at the municipality and get this term of office off on the right foot. This new council embarked on this endeavor. It was to ensure accountability, integrity, and transparency, and it's to be at the core of what we do as a region and what we do as a corporate entity. As we receive this information, we want to emphasize that commitment to taxpayers of this region and make sure that we show and express that we are here to move forward and take on these recommendations to make sure that this never occurs again. After reviewing these findings, it's apparent that there have been instances of poor judgment, and as an organization, our reputation and our brand has suffered. But there are many good employees in this organization, there are many good managers in this organization, and it's unfortunate that our brand has been tarnished like this by the actions of very few. Our learning will be that we will go forward to make sure that policies, procedures, lack of documentation is put in place, and we commit as a council, and you heard council unanimously accept this report last night and moving forward, that as a council we commit to the process of fixing these issues. There have been many changes at the senior level which needed to happen. This has achieved the objective of sending a clear message that the conduct of the past was unacceptable and will not be tolerated. Some of the documentation in the audit report points to past employees, consultants that did not follow policy, and they are no longer with the organization. Some of these findings of the audit report are quite frankly alarming. And as the chair of the Audit and Budget Committee, and I think I speak on behalf of Council when I say we are committed to ensure that those practices are no longer tolerated. Our role as councillors is to guide the overall direction of the municipality, and within the report there's findings that show weaknesses in our governance model and our governance processes. We're going to make sure that those provide the correct oversight to make sure that we have the information to make decisions that will allow us to address these issues in a clear and open way between administration and council. This council fundamentally supports transparent government. In this process, I think the community has seen that we have put all information out there. Through the audit, everything we could release, we released. Every step of the way, we made sure that it came back to council so that we knew, and came back to the audit committee at checkpoints. So we have been presented with recommendations from the audit completed by KPMG to how to improve our municipal governance, policies, protocols, and internally to improve our municipality. We're committed to implementing those findings. We will do progress reports and make sure that we share those on our website. We will make sure at the audit committee and at council that anytime you want to see how we're progressing on these findings, you can go to our website for checkpoints. In the past, it's unfortunate that it has come this direction, but as a learning organization, I'm pleased that we have the information, and this audit is going to serve as a bench point for us to move forward. And in this council is committed to let our actions, and this new administration is committed to setting a tone at the top that exudes the values of accountability, integrity, and transparency. Thank you very much.
Thank you and good morning. I would say that Councillor Germain has done the most excellent summary that we could hope to achieve in that, but he's done more than that. He's in fact been a true leader when it came to the Audit and Budget Committee and the actions and the guidance that he provided to us as we worked our way through this process. So the very first thing I'd like to do is give my appreciation to Councillor Germain, certainly on my own behalf, but I'm sure on behalf of Council as well. Another note of thanks goes to our auditors. They were very instrumental in bringing forward some things that clearly we didn't have the appropriate awareness about, but more than that, they've in fact guided us through what next steps we might be able to take in leading practices, identifying the necessity of creating some policies, the compliance with most of the others, and consistency in everything that we do. So having the ability to provide those progress updates through the Audit and Budget Committee will be an assurance that we're not going to have another report that didn't get addressed. This one will absolutely be. Determining how we might do that will require an incredible amount of coordination with our administration, and we are very pleased to have concerted efforts that will be happening with those staff. But that is my third thanks as well. We have a number in the organization who were consulted in terms of these audit report and findings, and so my appreciation goes to those members who are participants as well. But it's going to take the entire organization to help us in establishing not only the tone from the top and the consistency again in ensuring that we're progressing lockstep and measure to create the ultimate outcome from this, the accountability, integrity, and transparency, not only of our organization, but for the people who are in its employ, including our elected councils. So it's very important, I think, to have this in documentation so that we're able to take those steps as we move forward. 46 recommendations seems like a lot, but we have a very committed team in ensuring that those will be addressed in an appropriate fashion. So again, my thanks to Councillor Germain, the auditors, and the organization who made this possible.
Thank you, Mayor Blake and Councillor Germain. We're now going to open up the floor to questions, and Brendan will be facilitating this process. So as mentioned earlier, if you could please clearly state your media affiliation, your name, and Brendan will be able to connect with you. Also, if you're on the phone, we will be repeating your question just so that our viewers at home streaming live can hear well. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Shaw, do you have any questions for the Mayor, Councillor Germain, or the auditors?
All right, you're up. Good morning, everybody. I guess my first question would be that when this evolved, kind of the reaction from most everybody was surprise and kind of shock at some of the revelations before this audit was conducted. Now, do you have and this could be for Mr. Germain and Ms. Blake, do you have a better idea now of how things occurred the way they did?
I would take the first stab at this question, Marty. Thank you for asking it. In terms of how it occurred, no, I can't honestly say that I have a good understanding. We do have the identifications in the audit report in terms of the things that need to be improved to ensure that there's no repetition of that. But really the pace of development that we've been undertaking may have been part of the contributing factor to how some policies were just never created, how some practices came into effect without compliance with what policies did exist. And so for Council, the awareness, not only from the rumblings that we heard through the election, but the confirmation in the path forward that was provided through the audit is something that we'll benefit from.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have Gina from CBC.
How can you assure to have an accountability in the future for things like that?
Thank you. Accountability is certainly one of the objectives, and I think part of that is the tracking and monitoring process. And so when we have the high priority items that were identified through the audit, they will get the greatest focus and attention. But the assurance that I can provide is that the Audit and Budget Committee will continually have those updates provided. The importance of working again within the administration that we have to ensure that we're getting the kind of information that we need is a very important part of that monitoring.
Next up we have Fletcher Kent from Global. Go ahead, Fletcher.
Thanks. Mayor Blake, you mentioned that you're still working to try to figure out exactly how this might have happened in the past. You're talking about a fair bit of some of the policies and how they just weren't simply in place. But what do you think of the residents who might be looking at this kind of shocked and wondering how these policies couldn't have been in place and how you couldn't have known about what was happening?
I think I'd count myself among them, frankly. I came from a different corporate field, and in that large organization, we know we had policies for everything, and I know in the conduct of my practice that getting an exception to policy was a very, very improbable thing to do. They exist for the reasons that give you exact certainty in every circumstance that you'll be facing of that ilk. And so in this organization, I never anticipated that we wouldn't have the kinds of policies that we've needed, but this enlightenment certainly has made it more of a priority when I think about whether we need an administrative policy in-house or whether we need a council policy. Some of these high priority items are going to hit the council policy and go through that public debate as well.
Thank you. Evan Cook, Rogers, you're up next.
Thanks. I'll open up this question, I guess, to Mayor or Councillor Germain, if either of you wanted it. My question would be, both of you have served on council for multiple terms. Council has said that this audit, a big reason it was brought on was because of the citizens. But was there something that felt different this time around, serving this time around, maybe within the municipality that you considered with the audit?
Great question, Evan. How I understand the question is there something different this term around that made this council? This council is very committed. They really believe in governance oversight. They want to make sure that they have full knowledge of what's going on in terms of from a policy position, but also to make sure that the policy is being carried out and monitored the right way. So not to say there wasn't issues in the past that people have noticed and brought up. I'd be serving previous terms. There was there was things that I saw that I questioned and we went through, but this is the first time that it hit the critical mass and there was a council that wanted to look into and dove deeper into these issues. This report, this KPMG, the findings in this report really solidify some of the questions that councillors had. Many members of council were asking a lot of questions at the start of the term and in previous terms that they weren't feeling like they're getting satisfactory answers. When we found out with more questioning that there's more, we turned over those questions to the audit team. The audit team went and looked at those areas, and many of those areas showed up. Sure enough, there was no policy or there's non-compliance. So to answer your question, this is a council that's very committed to serving the taxpayers. This is a council that is rolling up its sleeves and wants to make sure that the work is done. So I'm proud to serve with this team.
Thank you. Next up, we have Bob Duck from Mix. Bob, go ahead.
Thank you very much. To Councillor Germain or to the Mayor, one of the words that comes up repeatedly is the word lack. My question, I guess, goes back in time. Was there just an assumption that these policies were in place because it was business as usual?
Good question, Bob. The LAC is used lots. Yeah, there's 46 findings where there's deficiencies. It might have been cheaper for us to do a report on what policies we have in place than what we don't have in place. But to your question, as you work through, you remember all members of council have full-time jobs. They do the best they can to review everything. But without the right governance structures in place, it is hard to peel back the onion and know what questions to ask. In my work at McDonald Island, we did dashboard indicators, and those are easy, quick ways, and it comes up in the KPMG report that is an area that we have to get as a municipality. And it's hard to do because you have to figure out what you're going to monitor, how much information you're going to get. But if you have those little click hits or dashboards and you see a discrepancy in those dashboards, then you can start to delve down and ask more questions. So to your point, Bob, you know, a lot of times you are told as a council that they follow policy, but at the bottom line, I was aware that the governance had been really weak. Our governance structure had been really weak, and we're still working hard to improve. Start of this term, we've added the audit committee, we've added rural, we've added transportation and communication, which we haven't got up and running, but we are moving forward, and we have already made some significant changes with our audit committee. Our internal audit function comes straight to the audit committee. As Mayor Blake mentioned before, the audit committee now has an opportunity to dove in and ask questions of financial importance. So there are some tools we've already started from the start of this term. This report is going to help guide us down, guide us in a direction to make continued improvements. There is a piece in the audit report that says that we need further work on our governance training, and continue to look at our structure. So if you don't have that fundamental structure right, it's hard for council to get the correct information to make their best decisions on policy and have the best monitoring tools to ensure the taxpayers aren't. Okay.
Next up, we have Marshall with Chaos.
Thank you. Just following on actually that previous question, 46 recommendations from KPMG. My question to council is, where do you go forward next, particularly with expropriation still in the works, still a hot topic? There are no policies, from what I gather, sort of set in stone in place. What are your priorities in terms of setting those policies for residents that are concerned right now?
Thank you very much. The question, as it related to a specific point in the audit, the expropriations, that was one of the questions that I posed the other night about. Sometimes we have legislation that precludes even some of the policies. The recommendation actually says that even though there's legislation there, we would be better served to have those policies written up and in place for continual implementation. And so depending on what the key priority area is on expropriations, I think we are largely past a lot of those efforts, which gives us a bit of breathing room to get that policy established. 46 recommendations are a lot. They were kind enough to provide some quick wins, which are quick, easy, and you're able to knock off quickly. That may not be the greatest priority, though. If we have to have some must on the list, the must priorities for me include those severances, the living in and the living allowances, and the fly in, fly out. Information like that came to the forefront during the election. It's, to me, something that comes out as a key priority. And so, again, I think prioritization is going to be important in terms of what council is able to actually achieve in the short term, and working, again, with our administration to achieve that.
Next up, we have Andrew Bates from the Port Victoria Today. Go ahead, Andrew.
Hi there. To the auditors, during the course of the audit, did you find evidence that anything criminal had occurred? And would you say that the audit justified the concerns that had caused people to request it?
Thanks for your question. No, we did not find any evidence of anything criminal having occurred. In terms of did it justify the call or the cost of it, I would say a very significant number of matters and findings were identified during the audit. There are insignificant areas where the municipality can improve. So I think it's helped the municipality frame some thoughts about how to go forward and make some organizational change.
Yeah, I had a question, Brendan.
Hi, who's speaking?
This is Crystal from Rocking Country.
Hi, Crystal, go ahead.
Hi, I was just wondering, in the meantime, while those policies are being developed, how will the municipality or administration determine things like severance packages, living allowances for staff, or will anything be suspended?
This is Mayor Melissa, and I'm pleased to say that as these enlightenments were coming forward, again through the efforts of the Chair of the Audit Budget Committee and bringing that information to Council to awareness, we also have included our administration in some of these burning issues, if you'd refer to them that way. And I will assure you that the first reaction of our new administration was to cease and desist on many of our practices that seem to be out of alignment with what expectation would be. In other regards, I know that there have been advancements made on the creation of some of these policies that are either in gap or not modern enough for serving the needs of the organization. So it is a work in progress. Even at some of the revelations that came, I know that they were remedied even before the audit came to into fruition. So it's an ongoing work in progress.
All right, we have time for 3 more questions, so I'm just going to go through the list again and ask if you have anything further to ask. Marty, Edmonton Journal, would you like to ask another question?
Sure. I'd like to ask about the fly-in, fly-out. It's been one of the areas where, when you talk about Fort McMurray, you know, it's part of the reputation that you guys kind of loathe as a fly-in, fly-out community. So, were you? I guess this is more for Mayor Blake. Were you stunned to find out that that policy existed? Were you know, these contracts were given to people where they could fly in and fly out?
I would go a little bit further than stunned. I'd say I was quite devastated because it was a question that was raised. I'd heard it through the election process. In the local domain, we had something called the talking stick, and I posed the question to the organization and got the response that no, we do not pay for staff members to fly in or out. And the response that I gave to the public at that time was that no, anybody who wants to go to other locations on their days off is welcome to do so at their own expense. And so somehow I either received misinformation or didn't get it accurately at all. And whatever the cause is, from the council perspective, it's an unacceptable practice for our organization to be supporting that. I'll still say that if people have the necessity to travel, we're never going to impede that. But we're not the ones that are going to be responsible to pay for it.
Next up, Fletcher Kent Global. Would you like another question?
Yeah, I would. A question to the KPMG auditors, actually. Could you say how unique is this? How many other companies or municipalities have you guys audited that have had these sorts of deficiencies?
Thank you for the question. We've audited many organizations, and all organizations have issues and challenges when you're going to talk about process policy. I would say for the municipality, I would consider the issues to have been significant. So there were more than we might have expected in a normal organization.
All right, we have time for one last question. Evan, do you have anything further to ask?
Hi, thanks. I guess my final question would just be, obviously there were the 46 recommendations put forward. Council approved those last night. Is there one area or a couple areas that you're going to want to prioritize in fixing over the others, or is that premature at this point?
Great question, and that's always the struggle when you have 46 balls in the air, is how do you juggle and control and make sure that you have it. There's a couple different tracks here, Evan, and when you look at the root cause analysis on page 8 of the report, it breaks it up into different areas. The whole governance section, mayor and council are going to, of course, take the lead on that, making sure that we have some structures that serve us. We are going to go out and get some external help and support. The report recommends that we do follow-up training and a follow-up review in that particular area. As the auditor answered last night, it is probably our biggest, most crucial area, because that is where we as a council perform our function, and that is where we are able to get that information on whether our policies are being applied properly, whether our services are being delivered and monitored. So that governance piece, mayor and council are going to take the lead on that, and we're going to go get the support we need to make that happen. The other sections are administrative. So when you start to look at it, there is 46, but there is 6 in that governance domain that the political body will look after, and then the 40 are administrative. And we've actioned, our motion last night was to administration to go start and come back to us by October 24th with how they plan to address the findings of this report, and let us know when, at which points they're going to be able to deliver on them. So there's a lot of work. It's a high mountain to climb, but this is a motivated group that really wants to serve taxpayers, and we're going to make sure that we do that. And as Mayor Blake said, and as mentioned, the tone from the top in this organization is significantly different than it was prior to the election and subsequent to staffing changes in this organization. So we are prepared to move forward. Good question. Thanks, Evan.
Thank you, Mayor Blake, Councillor Germain, and representatives from KPMG. In closing, I'd also like to thank our media for calling in and attending today. We encourage you to continually monitor our website, rmwb.ca/audit, for more information. And for any further media requests, please contact our communications department. Thank you.